I have with me a guest today, Mark McNulty with Action Coach Bluegrass, right? Is it Bluegrass Action Coach?
That's Action Coach Bluegrass. Yep.
Very good. So Mark, I wanted to know all about your background. What got you into business coaching?
Well, I came the non-traditional path, so I'm what I call a recovering engineer. So
A recovering engineer.
Yeah.
So I take it that meant like a lot of structure. And so didn't you mention to me though before, was it Cummins engines that you were?
Yeah. I worked at Cummins for the last 10 years. So I spent 20 years in the engineering world, electronics, software, hardware. The last 10 were at Cummins up in Columbus, Indiana. And I didn't do a ton of engineering the last 10, 12 years of my career. It was more people development, team development, business development. And I really enjoyed that a lot more than the engineering itself. So when it came time for workforce reductions and I got downsized, I took the opportunity to go look at changing careers is something that I really enjoyed and had passion around. And that was people development, team building, leadership development, and training. And coaching was a natural fit. It was just really small business coaching was pretty new this was 15 years ago. This was in July of 2004 when I started. And business coaching was for small businesses was pretty new. There was a lot of executive coaching going on, but not a lot of small business. So Action Coach is a franchise that I bought, and it's the longest running. So it's the oldest small business coaching franchise in the world. We're a top 50 franchise, and for years, as we're always one of the top franchises around the world. It's 26 years old. So I said I've been 15, and we're in 82 plus countries, over 1,200 offices around the world, and we coach about 10,000 businesses a year as a whole. And now I moved to Louisville about 5 years ago. To Columbus was a small market, but I decided I wanted to build out a team. I needed to be in a bigger market so that I could create a whole business. And we'll talk a little bit about how that comes into coaching as well, because that was me working with my coach to make some changes to really grow a business and grow a team, because that was the one thing I missed from corporate, was being part of a bigger team and building my own team instead of just building everybody else's teams.
So how is the engineering background translated over to your business coaching process?
Mostly in good ways now. But it fits in it. Building a business is a systematic process.
Mm-hmm.
At least building a business that will last.
Right.
You can build a business up to a point that's reasonably successful just any way you want by just working hard and showing up every day. But to build a business that lasts and that a team can run and operate for you, that takes being very systematic and disciplined, and that's where the engineering comes in. Also helps me. I'm a good problem solver. I'm a good system level thinker. Most business owners know what to do. They just can't get themselves to do it, or they're not sure how to do it in their specific business. So I come in with that system view and help them break down what seems like an insurmountable task into small chunks that they are fully capable of executing very well.
Now, it's really interesting because even though I'm the host of this podcast, you and I are both in that same industry space of business coaching, consulting, all that kind of stuff. But the nice thing is we're kind of also niched into our own personalities, specialties, however you want to phrase that. Because I know I'm really good at working with those, I call them squirrels in a basket, where they are just everywhere. They've got a lot of things going on, and they jump from object to object to object really fast. And I help to get them, more focused and into a system. And I know with you having that background, those people who love systems will gravitate to you, definitely. But it's also interesting that you and I have such a great rapport, being competitive in that same space, But tell me a little bit more, because I know with some of my clients, they have, because you talk about people development and person and all of that, the team development. That is one of the biggest things that they have. They have issues either with themselves or their people in their business. What are
Right.
some things that you've found over the years that are like the key findings of, if you would just do this thing, it would help fix this thing over here? What are some of those obvious things that some of our clients just don't see for themselves that you've seen?
Well, quite often I tell, the first thing I tell owners is just know, no matter what problems you have in your business, they're all your fault. So,
The buck
something goes,
stops here.
something goes wrong, it's your fault. If there's a miscommunication between you and your team, well, that's your fault. And it's just really, it's learning how to. I teach a lot of communication skills, just how to have a communication with a client, whether it's with a client or a team member. I tell people there's three types of talking. There's talking at somebody, and a lot of business owners talk at their team. There's talking to them, which is a little better than talking at them, but still pretty one way. And then there's talking with them. And that's the only time true communication happens, is when you're talking with. The other thing I share, and all business owners that struggle, especially that struggle, and no one can do it as well as I can. It's like, yeah, you're right, no big deal. But they also feel they're really bad at delegating, right? And so, and that's a real simple solution as well, because most of us, when we want somebody to do something for us, we say, hey, would you do this for me? I need you to do this for me. But what I'm really thinking and what I really mean is, hey, get this result for me.
Right.
But we don't communicate that. All we say is do this. And so they go, so your team, your employees, they go and do it and come back and they're like, that's not what I wanted. I should have it would have been better if I just done it myself.
Did it myself, right.
And in that case, it's true, because yourself is the only person who actually knows what you wanted, because you did a really poor job of asking for what you wanted, because you said do this and what you meant was get this done.
So there's been some trainings that I've done that have talked about the nuances of delegation to empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of difference do you see between, how hard is it in your experience with your clients or with yourself? How hard is it to make that shift from just delegating that to actually empowering them to do it?
You have to build trust. Your team has to trust you to accept the empowerment, to really believe that they truly are empowered to do it. You have to be a good leader. They have to trust you. And a lot of it is talking to them. So many people, we talk to our teams about, here's what we need to do today. And we never talk about outcomes and results. So I coach all my owners to stop talking about what they need to do and start talking about what outcomes and results they're looking for. Because, and I asked them, if they got that outcome on schedule, on budget, do you care how they do it?
Right.
Because
the answer should be no.
Because that's true empowerment.
Yes.
It's, I give you an outcome, a result that I'd like you to agree to be accountable for. I've given you the tools and resources you need. Go get it. That's true empowerment. But too often, the reason that I empower them is because there's no clear agreed upon outcomes or results that we mutually agreed upon, that's what we're trying to achieve. And that's where empowerment fails, is no definition of what success looks like.
When you work with a client, how long does it take to really get them to define what they want?
Well, I do a lot of that even before I start coaching with them. because I have to know if I'm going to be an effective coach, I have to have a sense of what they want out of coaching, out of their business, out of their life, so that I can even determine if I can help them. There's all kinds of different styles of coaching and coaching programs. So I do a lot of that work. And then when we start, so I do some of that even before I agree to become their coach. Because while they're checking me out, I'm checking them out. Can I really help this person? But then we also do, and I just did this last night with a client. We do what we call an alignment. That's built. It's part of the coaching program, and that's where we talk about what role does this business play in your life long term. Because there's lots of ways to grow a business. There's lots of ways to make money. Let's make sure we grow your business so that it supports the life you're trying to build for you and your family. Yeah, I want to know, are you trying to leave a legacy behind for your family? Or do you plan to pass it on to your kids? Do you plan to just close up shop when you retire? Yeah, I have to know all that because there's so many different ways to grow and improve a business. I only want to pick the strategies that will shape and form the business to meet the long-term needs. Too many business owners, and this goes back why I moved to Louisville for a bigger market. Too many business owners really are job owners.
Yes.
They don't own a business. The business owns them. When I was a coach by myself, it was just me and I had a part-time assistant. I had a great job, but I didn't have a business. I had a job. I really loved it. It was great, but I didn't have a business. So a business involves team and delegation and really being able to grow it beyond just yourself. That's when you own a business. And what I teach them to shift that mindset from owning a job to owning a business. And then what do we need to have your business do for you and your family and your life? So I always have to know that, we're at point A, where's your point B? So that we can make good decisions along the way and get closer to point B all the time.
What is one of the top 3 challenges you have to work with a client to work through, overcome?
Limiting beliefs is a big one. We all bring our past with us and our beliefs from previous experiences. And
Boy, don't we?
Yeah. And whether it's personal life or business life or career, we all bring those limiting beliefs, and so that holds us back. And it's really just helping by asking lots of questions, helping uncover what those beliefs are, and then helping them to shift their beliefs. Sometimes I can get them to shift quickly. Sometimes it takes a little while. They have to see proof. They're like me, an engineer. I want to see the proof before I'll change what I believe. But we limit ourselves so much, and until we can knock down some of those limiting beliefs, sometimes that's a real challenge. And then the other one is just a little bit like I talked earlier. Is just I can do it the best. I know and you're absolutely right. You can. So, but you have a choice to make. If we want to go with you're the best at it, so you're going to do it all, then that means you can't grow anymore. You're going to have a great job, but that's all you're going to ever have. You've got it, and you've built you've got some helpers to help you get it done, but you don't really have a business. If you really want to serve more people, create more jobs, make more money, whatever you're trying to do with turning your job into a business, you've got to let go of the fact that no one can do it as well as you, and be okay with that. Because I was telling you, you're right. None of them probably can, but that's okay. Can they do it well enough to serve your customers well? You know the difference, but would anybody else on the planet know that it could have been done even better?
So it's interesting, like you just brought up 2 really awesome points because they're true. But the interesting thing is, like when I first start talking to a new client, they think that their problem is they come to me for marketing issues.
Mhm.
They think that the marketing is the problem, when in fact it's them
Right.
more so than, so it's, I appreciate that you brought those two things up, because most business owners, most people in general, won't look at their own self and how they show up in those situations, in that business, in that committee meeting, that whatever. How they show up matters, and what they think is part of how they're showing up in the world. And so that affects literally everything they do everywhere. So whether it be at home or business or whatever. And so I appreciate that you've brought that up, because I know when they come to me, they think that their problem is on paper, when in fact it's not that at all.
Yeah, I got a funny story about that. So this is about 12 years ago. I wrote an article on sales for the local paper, and it's published. And couple months later, a doctor called me. He's a surgeon. Had his own private surgery practice, owned his own surgery center. And he said, I just reread your article on sales and teams, and could I come in and talk to you about sales? Because we've got a really big sales problem in our office, and that's really hindering our growth. So I said, sure. So we met and talked for a couple hours, and at the end of the time, he said, so let me just recap what I think I just learned. I've got a great team. I don't have a sales problem. I'm the problem.
And how did he take that?
So I just kind of sat there and looked at him and smiled.
Huh?
And he said, well, so do you do that too? Do you help that too?
Sure.
His whole thing was he wanted to see if he wanted to hire me to, teach his team how to sell. And, he didn't have a sales problem. He had it was all in his head problem. He was in the way problem. So he was a client for 8 years. It was awesome. We, tripled his practice and added associates and set up his retirement.
That's so awesome. I have this way with I get with my clients, they love Christy time, right? They always learn something new every time they talk with me, and sometimes I don't even do it in a coaching way. I just teach them what I've just learned about something, and so it's like this epiphany for them, and they enjoy it, and yada yada yada. Well, there's been some times that I can share with them some learning I've just found through a mentor or book or whatever. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. And then they start going on their own way. And then I just have this look on my face that says, like you just came to that realization all by yourself. You just figured it out. And they're like, how do you do that? I'm like, really, I'm just giving you the space. I've teed you up and you have worked it out. Like you have a safe space here in which to think a little bit different and clearly. And all right, so now what? What are the action items behind your new revelation, the realization that this thing is happening? Now what? Like, so do you get, I know I've had a few that they have a revelation, but then do nothing with it. What do you do with those clients who are like just not willing to make those changes?
So, and that's part of what they hire me for, though, is to be their accountability person. They say, when they share a revelation, they all know my next question is going to be, so what are you going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
What do we do with this? Is this something we need to do now or something we need to do next year? We all have those, clients, squirrels.
Right.
Squirrels, right? So
in a basket, man.
So it's, so does this go on this week's homework or does this go in the parking lot for next year?
Right.
And then part of what, every coaching session, I give clients homework and they have to complete it. And at the next session, if they don't complete it, we talk about, so what prevented you from getting that done this week? And, if it goes more than a couple weeks, I say, so is this no longer important?
Right.
Because if it is, let's take it off the list. But if it's still important, then we need to figure out how to get it done. So what's getting in the way, and dig a little deeper. I'll call them out. they want me to call them out on their behaviors. They want me to teach them how to be accountable to themselves, to their business, to their teams, because they don't know how to be.
Yeah.
We don't teach that. And it's, I'm a big fan of, another one of my philosophies is, and it's going to be the title of my first book whenever I sit down to write it. It's going to be Stop Holding People Accountable.
Do you
Because
need
it
me to make
doesn't,
you accountable to that?
because it doesn't work. Because it doesn't work. So you have to help your team be accountable, and I help my clients be accountable to themselves, to their business, to their team, by giving them the tools and teaching them how to be. And that's what employers, the business owners need to do with their teams. Teach them how to be accountable. They don't know how to be accountable.
Yeah.
If you truly believe they're worthless, fire them. But most likely they just don't even know how to be, because you haven't set up any systems. They don't even understand what outcomes you want from them. So holding accountable, all that means is there's been a failure, and now we're going to have a confrontation, and neither of which is usually very productive.
Right. I was just thinking, yay, confrontation.
Our favorite thing, right?
Nobody likes it. Some people are more comfortable with having a healthy, because confrontation doesn't always have to be a knockdown, drag out fight. No, that's not it. Confrontation set up well will get out in the open a truth that really needs to be dealt with. So that way, but I think if every owner had a little bit of coaching tools in their repertoire, they could actually have those confrontation conversations.
Right.
Of, hey, I'm noticing this thing is happening. Tell me more. Like, give me more information so we know how to process this, what's really going on. Because I know in multiple scenarios, even that I've experienced, whether it be in committees or not even necessarily clients, but groups that I'm a part of, on the outset, it looks like one thing is happening when the reality is that something totally different is happening. Right? So there's been this little snapshot out there. So let's just say somebody posted this random Facebook post, right? Random social media content, but based on the events that happened prior to that content, I may take it one way, when in fact it has nothing to do with the event that happened. It has everything to do with some other event that happened 5 years ago. Right. And it's just now coming up for them. So being able to have a confrontation conversation, having hard conversations in a healthy way, is also one of those tools to help walk them through. Let's grow together. Let's figure this out. Let's do this in a good way. Now, there's been times that not everybody's perfect. Not even me, Mark.
As an engineer, just so you know, I'm always right. So
of course, because there's always a system in place. Yeah. I just, most people who know me and have worked with me in those groups know that I have that line. Once I can go up to that line all day and be fine. But if somebody comes up behind me and pushes me over it, forget it. All bets are off. I've lost everything I've ever learned about coaching and being nice and playing well with others and the whole 9 yards. So we all have those moments. But as a business owner, I think one of the things that kind of sucks on an everyday basis is that we are kind of held to a higher regard, in a sense of we're supposed to at least look like we got our act together.
Right.
And behave as such. And we are the leader of that company. We need to show up as a leader of the company. And with that leadership comes certain expectations from our team and people that we're involved with. It's what are some tools or elements, books, videos, other mentors, like what are some things that you may give your clients to help keep them going in a good positive direction?
So one of the things is, so coaching is, there's context and content, right? Mm-hmm. All the books we read and all that, all the different strategies, all the content. Context is what's in our head, what we think. And so part of what I teach business owners is new ways to think. and
Yes.
think more like a leader than a manager, which means think about today forward instead of yesterday and today. Leaders
Right.
kind of look up and out, managers look down and back. So it's, first of all, if you're going to be a leader, you have to let your ego go. Great leaders are vulnerable. They're willing to admit when they don't know something. And that's one of the great powers of a leader. And if you've got a team, if you're in a business with a team, by admitting you don't know everything, you empower them to participate more. So vulnerability is a big one. As far as leadership skills and how to think like a leader, John Maxwell's got tons of books.
Oh yeah.
Patrick Lencioni has some great books on just he's got the dysfunctions of a team, but he also got the dysfunctions of a CEO.
Yep.
As well, that just around owner think that we get stuck in
Yes.
and thinking we have to know everything, and when we don't, because it's not possible to know everything, and you don't have to. That's why we have a team, so that the team can help us, and we have tools and technology. And so it's really being vulnerable and being open to the fact that you might not know everything. I've got a coach, and I hate him sometimes, love him sometimes, and but he helps mold the way I think. I know what to do. I've been coaching for 15 years, and I've been running my own business for 15 years. I know what to do. Just things in my head get in the way of me doing them either at all or doing them well, or letting my team do them. That's what we talked about Wednesday. Was, well, Mark, why are you even thinking about that? Don't you have somebody that does that for you?
Oh, well.
Well, yeah. So why don't you let them do that? Well, when you put it that way, it sounds kind of stupid,
It's just taking up mental space that you really don't have available.
Yeah. So we all need that, and it's that look in the mirror, and what do you see back? But leaders of businesses, you don't have to know everything. That's the good news. There's so much of help available out there now. And if you set your ego aside and your pride aside and focus on, I don't care how it gets done, I just want it to get done.
Right.
And if I'm not the one who can get it done, but somebody else can, that's okay. My goal is to get results for my clients. If I need to get somebody else engaged to help get a good result for my client, that's my job. My job isn't to know everything. My job is to facilitate my client's success. Business owners, number one job, I tell business owners, your number one client is your team.
Yes.
For solopreneurs, your number one client is you.
And that is also true.
If you don't treat yourself like the number one client, no one else is going to.
Nope.
And everything will be done at your expense.
Yes.
Personally, often personal expense too. But with team, if you've got team, your number one client is your team. Your job as the leader is to give the team the tools, the training, the resources, and the environment so that they can serve your customers.
So when we first started talking, you talked about limiting beliefs and that we're bringing all of our past experience with us into the business. Well, we're also bringing personal right now experience into the business. So let's say, you've had a bad day at home and you're bringing that into the team environment. They sometimes have no idea that that's going on. It could be anything. I know, like right now, my leg is in serious pain because I've jacked it up. That pain is obvious to people when I'm out and about. Like you even noticed it at the event. Like, why are you limping? Because I did this stupid thing. I stepped wrong going up the steps. It was no fancy story, but it's also affecting my mood, my energy level, my everything. So when we can have this awareness of everything affects everything else, that helps to empower ourselves in how we're going to, like I usually use that term, show up in that situation, show up in the moment, of, maybe you need to close the door, or maybe you need to not show up literally physically at work one day so that you can take care of that leg, or whatever the case may be. But there's also times of being aware that your team member is doing the same thing. So you and I have both had experience with business partners, and we know that their lives will affect the business. Our lives will affect the business. So how we show up together as partners within that business also matters. I always go back to Roy Disney and Walt Disney.
Mhm.
They're brothers. Like, so they had history together. You have Walt that had this super creative visionary, we're going to do it regardless of how much money it takes. And Roy is over here going, oh my God, we don't have the money for that. So it's the how to balance each other, but understanding you're bringing all of this in, that the business is no longer just about what's on paper, the process to get something done, the sales process, the whatever process. It's not just the process, it's also everything about the people are coming together in this business to accomplish the value for the greater good, so to speak. So those are that's one of the things that I found, is how integrated everything can be, from personal life to business life and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure, I already know the answer to this question, you walk your owners, your clients through that kind of stuff as well, because there's no real line of demarcation of that's just not allowed here in this conversation.
Right. So that's that alignment process I talked about at the front, is where we spend time talking about what role does a business play in your life?
Mm-hmm.
Because I need to know that. What ways does your life participate or interfere with your business, so that we can navigate that? We're people, business owners are people too, believe it or not.
Right.
And, we all have, and then it goes back to, just open, honest communication. And then self-awareness. I use some profiles. I use DISC profiles. That's a great one for teaching just fundamentals of self-awareness, of how people perceive me when I'm communicating with them. What if I'm in a bad mood? Despite what I mean to communicate or convey to my team, these are the likely things your team will be seeing if you're in a bad mood.
Right.
Whether you intend for them to see that or not, it's what they're gonna feel, hear, see from you. And so it's a great tool for self-awareness. But it's always, I have some clients that tell me I'm a therapist, and I'm not. But it's some sessions are very therapy like. Our lives doing Twitter business. My longest term client, 10 years. We've been through, I've coached him through beating cancer twice, a divorce, buying out his partner, and staying best friends with his partner. And there were entire years where we didn't talk, where all we talked about the business was just enough to keep it going, because he had to survive chemo and radiation.
Yeah.
And
that's a lot.
It was, so I work with his team on some of the business stuff, just to keep it status quo. We're not working on growth right now. We're working on survival, so that when you're healthy, the business is still here for us to get back to growing again.
Yeah.
So those real life things happen to people, and you can't pretend it doesn't. And so the personal stuff crosses over into business all the time, because we're people. We're not, you can't just, when you put your business owner hat on, you don't stop becoming a feeling human being.
And I'm so glad that you brought that up about, sharing that client story, because there are times if you're just looking at everything that the media messages are putting out there, when I say, your LinkedIn feeds, your success people, all of these success messages that are out there tell you to push, find balance, wake up early, do this thing, be active, be this, be that, blah, 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 blah. But your world is literally falling apart. To have a coach, to have your back, to say, you know what, right now, this is all you need to concentrate on is you. Like, here's some basics to keep the business going. Don't worry about a 10% growth. Don't worry about pushing so hard that everything falls apart. Like, what do we keep stable here? Like, this is one of the beautiful things about having a coach that has your back, is that as a coach, we know that you are a person first. The business is an entity that you work on. Like, it's a project. So we're separating you from that project enough that you can get healthy in those situations. I know I've worked through that with one of my clients as well. I'm like, no, for the next 6 months, there is no media spending. There is no this. We've got to concentrate on, let's just get this personal thing taken care of and clean this up. 2 objectives. That's it. That is all we're going to concentrate on, because it helps reduce the overwhelm. It helps put the energy where it needs to go. I think having so many success messages that tell you to just keep pushing sometimes becomes overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's it. I've had enough. I'm shutting down for the day. I don't want to do it anymore.
The number one thing that I tell my clients that I'm going to teach them how to do is, and it's the thing that we all struggle with. There's this everybody always says, well, I'm bad at time management. I never have enough time to get everything done. So I say, okay, 2 things on that. One, you will never, ever get everything dん.
What? Mark.
If you do, you should be worried. There's I've run out of things to do in my business. That's usually a problem.
That's a problem.
So just get over it. You're never going to have everything off your plate. Just is never going to happen. And it's okay. The key thing is to learn how to prioritize,
mm-hmm.
and then how to make better decisions than we've been making that are based on our priorities. Our priorities. Too many business owners make their decisions based on everybody else's priorities.
Yes.
And they basically abdicate their decision-making process to the world and let the world decide for them. When was the last time the world decided on something really important in your favor?
Never.
Not very often, right? So yes, we'll talk about how to read your financials, and we'll talk about sales and marketing and team, but the number one skill for you to learn and master is how to prioritize, and then how to make great decisions based on your priorities. And we'll talk about what goes into and I'll teach them what goes into making a decision, which is information gathering, beliefs, limiting beliefs impact our ability to make good decisions. Having enough data, asking the right questions so that we can make great decisions. But it all goes back to the business owners that are really good at prioritizing don't have as many problems as with being pulled in every direction as the other business owners who don't set priorities and get dragged all over the place. So
right.
That's the only way you control it. And I call it's not time, it's self-management.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the number one thing I work on all the time is self-management, because the stuff to do, go read a book. There'll be 50 things to do.
Right.
Pick 2, tell me what you want to do, and then let's make some good decisions and do it.
Yeah, the figuring out what to do, because this is why I focus so much on starting with the strategy. As a strategy means, figure out what you want, where's the direction, because the tactics, the plan, the activities within that strategy are going to change all the time. I just need to make sure we're going in the same direction that you really, really, really want to go in, so I can keep that on track. But yeah, I totally with this. Well, Mark, I have so very much enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that all of the listeners out there have enjoyed as well. With that, again, Mark McNulty with Action Coach Bluegrass, thank you for your time today. I'll have your information in the text section that goes along with the podcast. If you need to get a hold of Mark, it'll be there as well. But now everybody, you now know 2 business coaches. There's no excuses. Find one of us. Let us help you stay on track to better yourself, your team, and your business. And with that, I thank you for listening to Small Business Small Talk, and we'll join again next time.